now it's working. Hello, hello. Let's see here. Technology, sometimes we just need to kind of roll with it and hope for the best. Every time it's just another adventure with with this streaming, but I hope it works now. Let me see. Let me know in the chat if you can see me, hear me, and if you're ready to roll. Yeah, Marianne is here, Brenda is here. Hey everyone. Thanks for joining today for day or week 2 of our Fearless Watercolor series. Today we're going to continue our discussion from last time about putting paint to paper, removing anything that might be in the way of you just painting and having fun. Sometimes, like even like me going live, sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, I hope everything works. What if it's not? Because sometimes, I don't know if you noticed, a while ago I randomly went live and I didn't know I was live, and then everyone was like, well, that I know you were painting fast, but this was speed painting. I was not even aware it was live. So sometimes you never know what to expect. But I'm just rolling with it and just see what happens. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm just figuring it out. So hello everyone, Sharon is here, Debbie, Brenda, Sharon, Celestial, Victoria. Hello everyone. I'm coming in from Germany to you on this beautiful sunny day, and I'm excited to start painting and breaking into all your watercolor supplies, because the topic today is really about, yeah, maybe you wanted to learn watercolor painting, maybe you started watercolor painting, but there's always this resistance. Maybe you're constantly battling this fear of what if you mess it up, what if you waste, quote unquote, your supplies. It's also a big big thing for a lot of people. Or maybe you just want to, or maybe you wanted to paint, but somehow it felt overwhelming. Like you wanted to paint something, but it felt overwhelming. You don't know what to paint, and maybe you don't want to paint anything complicated, something simple. Just kind of like getting back into it. Maybe you're just starting and you don't know where to start. So it's a great way to just kind of like ease back into painting, or even just maybe you've been painting and it was kind of like stressful and you want to just chill a little bit and just have fun and being a little bit just focus on the painting process, not so much about the outcome, because it's like every day, every time I always come back to this realization that the stress, the unhappiness, the frustration always comes down to our attachment, not only to the outcome, we have expectations that maybe are not met because we have this attachment. So whenever we do something, we need to have this kind of like healthy balance between caring but also not really caring about it. So when you start painting, yeah, you want to have a good result, you want to have something nice at the end, but at the same time we also want to kind of like not really care about that, be okay with whatever happens, see what lessons can come up during the painting process. Maybe there's something that if you control it too much, we can't receive the lessons we need. So it's a good opportunity to just like detach ourselves from any outcome, just easing back into painting, the process, and just having fun. I see we are all over the world. Welcome everyone. Are you ready to dive into just some fun painting? And we'll see what happens. I have like some ideas what we could paint, but I noticed again myself overthinking and thinking, oh, it needs to be something amazing, it needs to be a certain way. What if it will be not interesting enough? And I've caught myself like, no, this is not the point of, I don't know, just creating something that's, I don't know, crazy, something that's out of this world, it's about just putting pen to paper, having fun. And even for me, like, I still get all these realizations where I chill, like I need to chill. So today, let me change the view so we can see, just move this around a little bit. Because we will paint like something like a more like step-by-step painting the next few weeks. Today it's really just about easing in. Hey Petra, nice to see you. Let me switch to the other view. Hope this works still. Yes, okay. So last week we talked about setting up your mindset, but also setting up your space for success. So if you haven't watched it yet, you don't need to like quit on here and go watch the recording from last time. But if you haven't watched it, you can watch it later and see what we talked about it. But the setup is pretty much the same as I showed you in the last live stream. So I have my supplies here on the right, and because I'm a paint with my right hand, I have my painting supplies on the right side. So I have my water, I have 2 jars of water. I have my painting palette, or mixing palette also. It's porcelain palette because I with like deeper wells because I like to create a lot of paint. Sometimes you need a lot of paint, and if it's just a flat surface, it's hard to do that. And also because it's porcelain palette, you don't get these beads. I know you can hack your way into having a plastic mixing well that actually doesn't do that. I just felt like it just works already, so I don't have to deal with that and hope it works. And I just use this for a long time, and I really like it. It's a lot of space. And I also have my paper towel here on the right. So I have everything under control, quote unquote. And so if you have something to drink, I have tea here. I put it on the other side. So you always want to separate your drinks from the painting area and whatever you're painting. So if you paint with the left hand, I would put all your painting equipment, so your liquid paints, mixings, whatever, to the left side, and on the right you have your drink. So it's separate. And today I will be using Sunless watercolor paper, but you can use any any paper you want. It really doesn't matter today. It's just about maybe you have like a sketchbook, or maybe you have a paper that's been lying around and waiting for the perfect moment for you to use it. Maybe that's your chance. And I'm going to use this one. It's 100% cotton paper, so I like to use cotton paper because it's just easier for me to achieve the results I want. And I also like cold pressed because I like the texture and I like how it holds more water, or just easier to paint wet into wet. And hot press, I don't really paint on hot press. So if you only have hot press, for example, or any other paper, don't worry. It's not about the end result. It's really about just having fun painting, calming ourselves, because maybe you had a stressful day, stressful morning, stressful evening, or maybe just a stressful week, and you kind of need to like, just give me a moment. I need to kind of like recalibrate today. It's a good opportunity to do that. So no pressure, only painting and just enjoying it. And I know sometimes when we have this huge sheet of paper in front of us, we feel like, oh my gosh, I need to feel all of it and I don't know what to paint. It's like you feel like this sense of pressure maybe to cover everything, and then you start thinking about, oh my gosh, this is expensive paper, and I don't know, I can't waste it because it's expensive and stuff like that. And I mean, it's totally normal to feel this way, because it's like you feel this you feel like it's precious because it was not cheap, right? But at the same time, you can switch to something cheaper, something lower quality, and just be aware that you might not get the same results, but it's okay just to ease yourself in. But at the same time, all the supplies that are created are meant to be used. And I think I learned that the quote, like, actually from Big Bang Theory the other day. Sheldon was like, had this realization where he got this toy, this collectible toys, and it's meant to be played, and if you're not using it, it's illogical, like you need to use it. So it's like with your supplies, they're meant for you to use it, so it would be illogical, is this the correct word, to not use it. Sharon asks, what paper is this? I've never seen it. You know that most brands don't show the cotton percentage. Yeah, so if it doesn't say anything about cotton, then it's cellulose paper most of the time. Like if it's cotton, it always says cotton. So this is 100% cotton Saunders Waterford. And then there's also Arch watercolor paper. You can also use that. It just, I choose my paper to, depending on what I want to paint. For something softer, I like to use Saunders. For something more vibrant and where I feel like I will use a lot of water and texture, or just in general, like I want more vibrancy, I use Arch watercolor paper, because here I feel like you need to use more paint to make it more vibrant. But it could be also like, because I mean, this is high white. I'm still kind of getting used to that, because usually I use regular natural white, which is a little bit more on the yellowish side. So if you compare Arch watercolor paper to Saunders, it's slightly, it doesn't look as vibrant, but it's just like the paper itself, like it's just a little different. So it's also hard, like it's not fair to compare, I guess, because every tool has their own purpose and their own personality, character. So you just choose whatever, like what you need for your painting. So if you ask 10 different people, you get 10 different answers what's their best or favorite paper is or paint. So you need to kind of decide, okay, I'm going for lots of white into white painting, and I want some paper that holds all of that. I want some durable paper because I want to use all sorts of techniques, and I don't want paper that just falls apart. So you just choose that. It's not mean that you just kind of give up on the other paper. It's just like you choose accordingly. Cynical says Saunders is the best paper in my opinion. Yeah, like it's some people hate Saunders, some people hate Arch watercolor paper, some love Arch watercolor paper, others love Saunders. So it really depends on what you want to paint and what your preference is. And sometimes you feel, you enjoy the other paper more for something specific because you felt like it's didn't get the same results as you wanted with some other paper. Hansen Heritage is also great. What is cellulose paper? Sharon asks. So Cynicals already said like it's wood pulp. So it's a different vibe. It's kind of like cotton paper is just more flexible, it's more durable. I mean, there's also different qualities on cotton paper, but cellulose paper is just different material and like, it just behaves differently. So you can't expect the same results on cellulose paper that you would get with cotton. So I have a link in the description box below to my supplies guide. So this is where I talk about the differences, what to look out for, because this is where a lot of people's struggle comes, because they're like, I just get something that says watercolor. I'm just starting. I just want to figure out if I like it, and then they buy something that's cheap and says watercolor, and then they follow tutorials, and then it doesn't work out as it's shown in the tutorial, and it's so easy then to think, oh, it's just me. I'm not talented enough. I don't get these smooth, vibrant mixes, blends when I try, so I'm doing something wrong. I can't do this. And actually, it's just a matter of your supplies. So make sure to check out the description box below for the guide about watercolor supplies, and just being more aware of the differences and how they play a role in your watercolor painting process. Davande says, cellulose is wood pulp paper, it piles badly and can't handle a lot of water, will buckle, that's unpreventable. Welcome back to painting with watercolors. Alright, but don't hold yourself back. Like, this is also a way to, notice where is your resistance. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't have this good paper, I can't paint. Or, oh, my paper is too good, I can't paint, I don't want to ruin it. Maybe you start over perfecting over a line that you did. So notice like the thoughts are coming up, and this is a good opportunity to then just, okay, what am I doing here? Why am I obsessing over perfect lines here? What's the problem? And then go, okay, it's not about that. Sharon says, I usually use Arch, and recently I'm also using Toscana, and it's great as well. Yeah, like there's so many different papers. Like I wouldn't jump around too much, because then you kind of like don't get enough time with one supply and get used to that and kind of like get familiar with that. And there's too many variables if you change too many things, and you don't know if it's the paper, is this my paint? So yeah, so this is the paper I'm going to use. And like I said, sometimes it feels very overwhelming to paint all of this. And we don't have to. Just because we bought this sheet of paper or this block or this pad, it doesn't mean we have to fill the whole thing in whatever we're painting. What I like to do is, especially when I prepare, for example, a project for a class or something like that, I like to start small. Like I like to, because maybe it doesn't work out with the way I want it. Maybe I'm not quite sure about this idea I have or the reference, how I would paint that. So I never start with this huge sheet of paper, even if it's relatively small compared to maybe a full sheet. But for some it's relatively small because they paint larger than that. But what I like to do is I like to use tape, and I have different tape. Like I bought this on Amazon, and I've been not very happy about this one, so I might even not use that. So you don't want frustration here. So I have this card. This is a random brand from also Amazon, I think. You can also use washi tape. It's just, again, depending on the paper. You want to make sure that your tape is not too strong. If your paper is, for example, too brittle, let's say, you don't want if for example your paper is very textured and your tape is too weak, then it won't hold on the paper. So you want to find a good combination. So if the more texture your paper has, the stronger your tape should be, because otherwise it won't cooperate. Let me see here. I'm just checking also here. I think we have I'm also streaming on Facebook, and I just wanted to double check there as well, because I accidentally went live on with the other wrong thing. But okay, it doesn't matter, we will fix that later. But okay, let's go back to here. Green frog, green frog, I haven't used it, so I can't say share my experience. There's also tape for sensitive surfaces. So yeah, it really depends on because if, for example, you use paper like Legion paper, I think I felt like it was too brittle, so I needed to use washi tape. Other tape that's actually not that strong couldn't handle, the paper couldn't handle that. Oh yes, I can definitely. Sorry, I was just wondering if it's too loud or something. Thank you for letting me know. Is that okay? Hope it's okay. Let me know if it's too loud or something. I will make it quiet. Just sometimes for me it's it's a little weird when it's quiet. I'm talking to myself, so kind of the music gives me a little bit kind of ambiance, I guess. Okay, let me know if it's okay now. I think it's much quieter now. But Sharon says, I'm wondering about your name. What is the meaning and how do you spell it? I watched a painted with you, I think a month ago with turtles. yeah, it's just, you can say Mako. It's from a Japanese anime, because like I was a huge fan of one of the characters, and I just used her name, like Makoto. And I used to love a lot of cappuccino, and then my friend, she combined Mako with cappuccino, and then it turns into Makochino. So what I will do, so let's start diving into, otherwise you'll spend 3 hours talking about supplies and other things. All right, so I will be using tape, and what I will do is you can decide how you would like to divide it. So you can start with, like what I usually do, depending on what I'm painting or testing out. I usually just start with just dividing this paper in half with my tape. And it gives me kind of like the idea, okay, this is less overwhelming, and also it gives me, yeah, like I said, I like to test my ideas, approaches, painting ideas, reference ideas, and then just test out, do I like it, does it work, should I maybe paint something else, or is this working, and things like that. So I like to just like like this time I could paint this twice on this one sheet of paper, because I have 2 spaces here. But you can also divide it in for example, fourth, make it even smaller. That's also sometimes what I do. So something like that. So maybe you have like want to test out different colors, different compositions, maybe or like just kind of testing out ideas. So it's, and sometimes what I also always encourage my students is to kind of feel into, okay, maybe I'm kind of like feel restricted. Maybe this is too small, this section. Then maybe upgrade to like this size. Or maybe you always feel like restricted by this size, and you can then go larger. So feel yourself in. You don't feel like you need to paint small because, I don't know, I say it or someone else says it, or something like that. If you feel like I don't have enough space to express myself, just go big. You don't need to restrict yourself, but I think you will feel it. You feel like a little like you need more space. But for today's project, we don't need to really worry about like painting something specific. What I would like to do is kind of like divide this this project into like 2 approaches. So what I like to do is let's just have like a moment where we really focus on like section by section, and the other is more like, okay, let's loosen up a little bit and just see what happens. Sharon says, I get it. I love anime as well. Sailor Moon is my favorite. Yeah, sometimes I not everyone knows about Sailor Moon anymore, so it's like different generation, I think, also. So this one, we could also divide it. I felt like some, actually, no, it's okay. Maybe this one we could separate like that. If you notice yourself, should I apply tape here or there? Maybe I should more to the left. Oh, maybe it looks better on this. This is already a sign. Let's not overthink. Just put it somewhere. Let's be present to any resistance that might come up. Wanting us to be perfect placement for our perfect tape. Put it shorter. All right, and I also like to I like to have a whiteboard at the end. So what I'll do is I think I will just apply this tape here around as well. And then it already feels like you can paint like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paintings. And like I said in the beginning, we are not painting like a full-on step-by-step project. It's more like easing us back into painting, or maybe just resetting, or maybe just like, maybe you've already challenged yourself the whole week on painting something more challenging. Let's just do something more relaxing. Sometimes it's good to just do something easy, just something simple. Like for example, if I feel tired, I can't watch a new movie or something, or a new show. I'm just exhausted. So I just watch old shows that I've already seen 10 million times. But I still enjoy watching it. I have fun. I kind of like... So it's like when you paint something, trying to challenge yourself all the time, sometimes you also just want a break, and then just... I mean, I love challenging myself and painting something that I haven't painted before, or just, you know, just improve something. But sometimes it's just fun to just like do something simple and relax. Okay, so something like that. You can put the paper like that, so vertical or horizontal. This I will move a little upward because I know I wanted to be slightly more even here. If not, okay. Noticing myself, I'm over perfecting here, so that's fine. Doesn't have to. You don't need a ruler. Yeah, sure, Kathy. So you don't need a ruler, measuring out millimeters where you put the tape. And the other fun part, I think, what you can do is, maybe you're familiar with what's the word, neurographic painting, where you basically just swirl around your pencil or marker, something like that, and then you connect some of the intersections, and then you fill in the gaps. So something similar I wanted to kind of like do, so it's not just painting streaky lines, stripes, or something like that. I wanted to just kind of like do something more spontaneous and maybe create some shapes that are fun to paint as well. So you can use a pencil. I wouldn't necessarily go in with a marker first. Maybe you prefer the white space more than black lines, so you can decide later, because marker will be more permanent, I guess. So use just a pencil, whatever. This is a Faber-Castell pencil, 0.7, and start somewhere. Again, if you notice, okay, where should I start? Maybe it's left, right, top, down. Just close your eyes and start painting, I guess. And then just continue, like just something like that, maybe like that. And then what you can also do, you can also use a tape, for example, like that. Place it maybe here. You can draw like more organic or like more specific circles or like shapes like that. This is, I didn't connect here, so like that. Maybe like also here, on here. So all like round shapes mostly. I can also put it like that, so it's easier to move from left to right. Yeah, some people have, yeah, it's concentrating and talking. You'll notice that sometimes when I paint, my brain kind of like, it's like there's some buffering happening, where when I'm painting and talking at the same time, there's like some parts of the brain takes over, where I'm quiet while I'm painting, then I explain, continue painting. Yeah, so it looks like a hot mess, but it's okay. What we can do is now you can take, for example, these corners right here, like that, and connect them. So kind of like drawing like make them more round if possible. So basically where the intersection is, so you don't have a point, you have a round shape. This is more for like if you want to really have black lines later in the end. You can also do separate ones. One you can have like a with black liner marker, and the other one without, and then just have white space. Maybe like also here. Art sometimes requires a hot mess. Yeah, that's why I'm not a neat painter. Like you should see my palette usually. Like it's colors everywhere. It's like a hot mess. And yeah, at my desk, my fingers, everything, because I think if the more you can like create this pressure to be careful and don't contaminate your colors, don't this and that, everything needs to be neat and tidy. You kind of like don't give yourself this opportunity to play and just be messy, just really like playful out, because you worry about, oh, what if my brush is not clean and then I touch this other color and everything will be a mess. Then you have this, yeah, kind of like, what would you call that, like some restriction, I guess. So don't make them too small, these intersection, because they might then will take even longer maybe to fill, and also then it's just such tiny sections that might be, yeah, harder to fill in, or just not as visible because they're just so tiny. Sharon says, if you are not a mess and painted yourself with colors, then you are not an artist. That's my motto. Yeah, like I would be a terrible oil painter. I mean, maybe you've seen this one video that I did a while ago where I was painting with oils, where I recreated a Bob Ross painting. Thankfully it was water soluble oil, because otherwise, I mean, was it actually? I don't know. I'm not sure if maybe it wasn't actually. I don't remember, but I do remember that I still have paint on my screen. I still have dots there. Sometimes from time to time I scratched off. Still have some splatters somewhere that I couldn't remove. I think maybe it wasn't water soluble after all. Maybe it was something else where I used that. Because I would be such a messy painter that I wouldn't actually need a studio where I wouldn't ruin any of my furniture and things like that. But it's also great, like you can find what medium really fits your type, I guess. I'm generally a more messy painter and more loose, and I need like more freedom to mess around. So if I would have to think about, I need to immediately, or I need to use mediums to clean my brush and things like that, I would, or splatter. I can splatter because then it's a pain to get rid of. Then yeah, it will be difficult. And watercolors, you can wash it off. Like even with acrylics, if you can't really forget your brushes, you will need to clean them right after. Probably would forget like most of the time, unless I learned my lesson the hard way and lost one of my best brushes to drying. Again, this could be also just like star shape. Like it could be a fun shape. Like you can also, like I said, you can use a marker, because pencil lines, if you make them too dark, or your brush, your pencil is too soft, like maybe it's B2B, you could smudge it. And again, like if you smudge it, then you smudge it. Like we're not, part of the painting. It's part of the history of our painting. All right, so let's just continue as yeah, combine them as far as you want. So yeah, the more intersections there are, the longer it will take to do this step, but I think that's good enough. And from there, we can really play. And sometimes it's maybe you have a new set of watercolors that you haven't broken into, where you can just get familiar, like see how the colors look, how do they behave, and yeah, just get a feel for it. Or maybe you want to yeah, just kind of like figure out like a beautiful color scheme, or just yeah, just have fun with certain colors that you like. Maybe you are into like green turquoise colors, and this is a good opportunity to just yeah, test it out and see like nice combinations. So I like turquoise and greens. Sometimes it changes, like sometimes I really like this color and then I'm over it and then I move to something else. Sometimes I come back to different colors, so it really depends on the mood, I guess. Random says, I used to watch your videos when I was a kid, now I'm an adult. Yeah, I got a notification the other day from YouTube. It's my 13th birthday on YouTube, and I'm like, it felt like it's 20 years ago, but it's only 13. But at the same time, 13, I was like in my early 20s. Like, it's crazy. So yeah, it's crazy. Like, but yeah, so this is how far I will have this one this way and the other one will be this way. And what we can do now is you can, like I said, you can use different colors. For example, you can start using your paints that you have and go one by one. Like in my, I think in the previous live stream, I talked about how I was roughly setting up my palette. I have a video on that because I follow like a color wheel here. So they are following a color wheel the way I placed my colors. Maybe yours are differently, so it doesn't really matter. So you can just go through everything. You can just randomly test out different colors. You can place them differently, or you can, yeah, like you can just combine whatever. Like you need to think about. You don't need to think about where exactly you're placing the color. Yeah, you can just swatch them like that. Yeah, I'm 35. I'm halfway there as well. Hey Alfia, glad you could join us. All right, so I will be. Let's look. You can follow me, or you can follow your own intuition and just play whatever color speaks to you. What colors in general speak to you. You don't need to use all of them. So what I will do is to keep it simple. I would start with some green and blues. So to avoid muddy colors, maybe you don't want to be like super muted or like more like desaturated, like olive colors, something like that. I would suggest just use two colors. For example, lemon yellow and a cool blue color, like cerulean blue hue or phthalo blue or something like that. Let me see if I can swatch that properly. So this is my already pretty green lemon yellow, and you can use, for example, cerulean blue hue or phthalo blue or Prussian blue. I mean, I think Prussian blue is a little like more like not as greenish. You can also just use green, like I have phthalo green, and you can also, you technically could get something similar like with the lemon yellow. Oops. And the cerulean blue hue. So similar, it's depending on the ratio. So you can use one color, you can just use yellow and green, really depends. Or maybe you want to have a little bit of blue in between as well. So these will be my colors. So I don't think I will start with yellow. I will start with a yellowish green. So first I create a small puddle in my mixing well. So this is why it's great to have a mixing palette with wells. So it's not just flat. You can create multiple and just switch around and also see how much paint you actually have. So I'll start with water and then I'll add my lemon yellow. So this is my outer yellow. A little bit more. So I'm just dipping it in. And then I'll add a little bit, so just the tip of the brush, this cerulean blue hue, and this is what I got. It's relatively watery, so it's more like a yellowish green, because I have more yellow than blue in it. So it's already green because of this blue, but because there's more yellow in it, it's more like a yellowish green. So I will use that, and then I think I'll just add more of the blue color into that. So we can use just one puddle and just tweak it into directions that we want. So we can start with a more yellowish green, let's say, so more yellow. So I'm not turning it into yellow again, I'm just making it more yellowish. So now it looks more like May green. The more yellow I get, the closer it gets to yellow. So technically, if you add a bunch of yellow, at some point you'll get yellow again. But we don't want to get it that far. So something like that. I'll start with that, and then just make sure you have enough so you don't have to necessarily recreate it. And you can decide where you want to start. Again, don't overthink, just place it where you want it to be. And I'll start here. You can also start like at the left, at top left, and then go to the right. And I'm using here my silver velvet brush. Decide on the size of the brush depending on the size of painting you're painting. So if you have a tiny detail here in the corner, you might need to switch to a smaller brush. But if you have a brush that has a nice fine tip, then you can just use the tip. And here I'm not painting all the way to the pencil line. I'll leave a little bit of space in between, because this will also help us to prevent some colors to blend in, and even if they blend together, that's okay as well. It's not the point to stay perfectly inside the lines. It's about just being more, I guess, more mindful, but not to the point where you're aiming for perfection. So catch yourself if you're going to perfection. So I will maybe do like 3 colors and then mix the blue in. So I'll use another 3. So another green here. Also, what you can do, a fun little trick that I like to do sometimes when I paint, is using salt. If you have salt, I don't know if you keep salt around on your desk, I don't know. I happen to have salt here. So what you can do is you can, when the paint is still wet, you can drop in some grains. This is sea salt, and just let it be for now. Alfia says, I can't believe how much I miss the time I used to watch your videos. Yeah, that's why I'm here, like just live. I feel like it's much more fun than watching a recorded video. And we can chat and just like actually sit here together and paint. Like I do, like in my membership and watercolor membership, we do have live painting sessions every month. So this is a great it's a great way to just connect with the community, paint, and actually create a painting at the end. So sea salt, you can also use table salt, so it doesn't have to be sea salt or anything like that. And here also I also teach, like, have lessons inside the membership about like in-depth lessons on salt technique, like the timing, the consistency of paint, and because like sometimes it's really about like the timing and the consistency of paint to get the results you want. I think I'll add salt here as well. yeah, I mean, granulating paint. I mean, I think there's also a medium that makes your paint granulating, but I'm not super a huge fan, or maybe I don't know. I don't use many of those like mediums and stuff like that, because I feel like it just adds another layer of complexity, or not even complexity, but more like another thing to consider. Like, for example, even if you use some medium that slows down the drying time, like, you don't know how it affects your painting or the process, or maybe it just feels different. Maybe, I don't know, just like I use rather water and my other tricks that water and watercolor has to offer, instead of using some mediums. But yeah, you can still like use whatever what works and like what you enjoy using. Shannon says, how do you leave these white lines? I'm not good at leaving space. Don't worry, you don't have to. Like, you can paint and like you can paint all the way to the line. Like, by the time we probably go back to our areas that will be already dry, but I just slightly stay away from the line and just kind of like imagine like a gap in there and just stay there. Just aiming for like maybe 1 millimeter or something in between. Okay, so I have this green, like my yellowish green, and then I add more of my blue. So I'm just rolling my brush in this blue and adding that. So if there's no huge difference, I just go back and add more blue. And because we add more and more pigment, we also need to make sure that we at some point need to re-add a little bit of water, so it's not, because we already used up water, and then we add pigment, so it might become darker. So we need to also consider re-adding some water. So I'm just placing it next to it. You can also use a different spot. And this one. So this is a great way to just not worry about muddiness or thinking about what color am I using. Does it fit together? I don't know. Maybe I don't like this color in the end. Maybe it's too colorful in the end. So I think like you can even paint monochromatic. So monochromatic as in just one color, and just use water to dilute it, or just more pigment to make it darker, and then have variety. So we could have also done that as well. So just having different variety of lightness and darkness of just one color. So this will be monochromatic, or you could, right now I'm using a more like analogous color scheme. So it's more like greens and blues that are very close to each other on the color wheel. Well, if you want to make it juicy, you can also use a complementary color scheme. So you can stay in this green and then come back with some red accents or something like that. Maybe this time maybe 3, this one maybe, let's go 4. Maybe let's increase the amount. And I'm not staying perfectly away from my pencil line. And again, this doesn't matter. Like you can later use a marker and divide the colors again. So it's not about keeping a white space just for the sake of white space. It's just like maybe you want to have the white space, maybe you prefer a black outline. That really depends on the vibe you're going for, I guess. Okay, so these are my 4. So I had 3 yellow greens, and I had a slightly more bluish green, if not still relatively like grass green, so but less yellow this time. And then I'm going in with more. So I will use the same brush and dip it into my blue again. This is, again, I'm not worrying about messing up my blue with some green or something like that. We will clean this in the end anyway by adding water. So now it's a little bit more like less yellow. It's more like mid-green, I would say. I don't like, it's something in between. You can also always like swatch it first and just, I mean, this would be too, you will probably notice the difference in the palette already mixing well. So, but if you're not sure, you can swatch it and see, okay, maybe it's still the same like the previous color, then just add more blue to it. But I think if you have not high quality, but like high pigmented watercolors that's easy to get the pigment out of the pan, then you won't have this issue that you add more just water instead of pigment. Because sometimes if you have paints that are harder to reactivate or like not as pigmented, it feels like you're scrubbing, but nothing really comes out. So you might need to either spray it with some water first to really give the paint a little bit more time to reactivate and wake up from the sleeping block, or use tubes, or upgrade to some more higher quality paint, and this will also help as well, because some paints are just like bricks and it's hard to get them very juicy and dark, and it's much easier with more pigmented and higher quality paints. And these are tubes that I put into my mixing well. So sometimes they don't really have enough time to really dry out because I keep painting or adding water because I'm painting with them. Sometimes I squeeze out more paint, so there's not really a time where they really turn into this block that's hard to wake up. This is a Silver Velvet brush number 8. This is a very old brush, and I still use it. This is another thing, like make sure to look into the watercolor supplies guide, where I talk about like differences in your supplies and things like that. But if you have a good brush, it's versatile and holds a lot of water and paint and releases the water nicely, then you use it forever. Like I made the mistake that I was like, oh no, I'm saving this money and just let me buy 10 different brushes that are lower quality, but I'll at least get that, like have more brushes, something like that. And in the end, they were like just a pain to use because they didn't hold water. And then even like tiny brushes, I'm like, why am I getting these brushes if they don't really hold any water or paint? Like they ran out of after 1 millimeter of paint brush stroke. I should have saved this money, just get one good brush and use it like forever. But yeah, it's sometimes you need to discover it for yourself. Like I could say it every day and say like you need to use good brushes and paints and paper, and you might be like yeah blah blah, until you actually experience that. You'll be like, oh my gosh, like it's you need to just experience it yourself and to really realize that, I think. 1 2 3, let's go 4 again. Maybe this one would be here. And also, like I said, depending on the size of the painting or the area you want to paint, you want to choose the size of the brush. So if the area is tiny and your brush doesn't have a nice fine tip, or it's just a little more challenging to paint in more detail with a bigger brush, just switch to a smaller one. You don't have to paint with a large brush. But I think what often times happens that is people use a brush is actually too small, and then you get more streaky results. So here I think this already dries a little bit too much, and I don't feel like the salt will do much because it's just a little bit too dry. So what I will do is actually sprinkle some water on top. So I close these ones and just sprinkle some water on top, and I get also a nice sparkly effect. And then the salt can do the rest. Sarah says, using different types of salts and different colors is sometimes that I like to experiment with sometimes. Yeah, that's also a great idea. So maybe you have different types, like table salt, sea salt, some other salt, and you can test out which salt works better or differently. But also make sure that you when you test different salt, that you use the same color for everything, because maybe this pigment doesn't react as well as the other pigment, and then you also have different salts, so you don't really know, is it the salt, is this the pigment. So have this, when you test, have just change one thing, so maybe the salt, but the colors are all the same, the pigments are the same, so you know, okay, this salt with this pigment reacts this way, things like that. Yeah, if like sometimes the brush don't have really nice fine tips, so it's harder to use. The number 6, this is number 6 that I have. This is silver velvet. And also, like, what you can do if you find it hard to leave white space is, instead of painting with the tip of the brush, so kind of like using the tip to outline, use the belly sides, because then you have more control. But at the same time, if it's like a very tiny area, it's harder to navigate, I think, with a brush. So you might need to feel into it. Like, you could use the side of the brush like that and just outline like that. So it's not just because if you have the point, sometimes you maybe jiggle, or like, I don't know, just brush all of a sudden moves in a different direction, and then yeah. So test out the sides of the belly. 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. All right, so then I can go in with more. So I'm cleaning my brush now, so I think I need to introduce some clean blue, and then I can just pick up the leftover greens that I have in the blue, add more to it. I might have too big of a mixture here, so it might be tough to get to the blue version that I want, but maybe I also need a little bit more water here. Let's see, how does this look? So now it goes more into blue, so it was more green, now we're actually entering the blue zone. Sarah says, but painting with 0.9% sodium chloride, only if you have it available to you, has been really fun, as well as seeing how each of my paints interact with it. Yeah, I think this is the fun part about watercolor painting, because I don't think you can really do such things with other mediums. Like, I mean, they all have their own personality, and we can't really, like I said, we can't really compare different mediums with each other, because they're all unique, and it's like, you need to respect, or we need to respect them as they are, and not say, oh my gosh, like, why are you not like watercolor, why are you not like acrylic or something. It's just, they're just the way they are, and they're beautiful the way they are. It's just like with oils, you get this texture, and you can get this pasty, or with acrylics and oil both, like you can get these pasty thick layers, and they have texture and everything like that. It was watercolors, you can't really do that unless you use maybe some tools like a pasty medium or something like that. But I think the beauty of watercolor is that it's so versatile. You can turn it into opaque pastel looking colors. You can use salt, you can use plastic foil to get more like icy textures. So yeah, and then you can go from light to dark with just water, and because really, like, watercolor is it's really more about water and colored water instead of paint. So you paint with water, colored water, and then once you understand that, we can really use it in so many different ways. Like, use salt, that salt will kind of soak up the moisture, and then you have different drying stages that play into that as well. And yeah, it's just like really fun to play scientist, I guess, and just play and see what happens. You can blend colors in one into another, like really in a more fluid way. You don't even need to mix, it mixes itself. So that's fascinating as well. And also, like, I was talking to some of my students the last few weeks, about their journey and like their progress they've made inside my watercolor membership. And we talked about like one of the things was that watercolor is really a good teacher, because if you come from a background of like you need to have control and perfection and things like that, and you are so used to because your job maybe requires that you're perfect, because if you make a mistake, it's important, like it's a big deal. So here it's like a safe space to just like play. You can use water, you can splatter, you can mix colors, you can blend them together, you can overlap them, you can not blend them together, you can put them next to each other and just use all the different things and have fun with it. Like the world won't end if your colors blend into each other or you get a bloom that you didn't want. It's okay. Like it really brings out a lot of times like these traits that we sometimes didn't know we had, or we know we have them, but now there's a good way to practice to kind of ease them a little bit, like perfection. Like, so what? Like, what if the painting won't be perfect? Like, who said? How do we know if it's perfect in the end? Like, how do you define perfect? Okay, it doesn't look like the reference. Well, okay, then it just doesn't look like the reference, but it doesn't mean it's like perfect in the way it is. Like, it just looks different to the reference. It doesn't mean it's not perfect or something like that. Even like what is even perfect? How do you define that? For someone else, it might be a hot mess and like blobs, and for someone else, it's like a masterpiece and evokes emotions because the colors are so beautiful and things like that. So sometimes we create our own problems in our head just by putting so much pressure on ourselves for no reason. I mean, deep down probably we have our reasons why. They come from past experience and things like that, but it's a good way to just let's chill a little bit. It's okay. It's just a piece of paper, it's paint. It's not a big deal if something doesn't work out the way we want it. And then when you free yourself of that, I feel like this is where the art really happens in a beautiful way, where you have, because sometimes I even say like I'm so happy when my first painting doesn't turn out, because now I can just like let go and just experiment. Because if I start a painting with like overthinking the reference, overthinking how I want to paint that, I'm just too attached to the outcome. Like we started this whole live stream, like detach ourselves from the end result. We need to do that, and then once we have that, we can approach it with fun and play, and then see what happens. Like and this is why I'm saying like when my painting doesn't turn out the way I want it, I have already got it over got it out of my system. It's a hot mess, but I already put the paint to paper. I already kind of like create a mess, and from there I can decide, okay, this is really nice, I really like it. I wasn't patient enough, or I think the colors are not really working the way I wanted them to be. Instead of having this precious idea, this idea that like holding this painting into such precious high standards or something like that. Branson says, wow, that sprinkling the water over the cell technique is amazing. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, like sometimes when you see that, okay, the paper is not as shiny anymore, and you don't only get these just more like dots, like not very defined, then you can add a little bit of water. Then you get like blooms with just water, and then you have cell that kind of like also continues to do the thing. Sharon says, true that. I hated watercolors at first. I hated using them and was so angry and frustrated because I'm totally a perfectionist. Today I love them. Yeah, like it's like, that's why I think when people come from from oils or acrylics or drawing, sometimes you kind of like transfer those habits or expectations onto watercolor, and then when it doesn't behave the way you want it gets frustrating, because like why isn't it, can I control it? Or like it just feels like it's such a difficult medium and it's frustrating, nothing works. But it's just about understanding how watercolor actually works and then using that to your advantage, because like you can't get mad at something that's not built to be used this way. So when you understand that watercolor is this medium and it requires you to be this and that and do this and that, then you know, okay, I just need to follow that and it will be much easier. And so if you don't have any background in art or any other medium, I think that's actually a good thing, because you don't bring in these habits that you then need to unlearn. Because a lot of times I see people use watercolor as acrylics because they are used to how acrylics are used, and they forget that in watercolor you use mostly water. So if you don't have any experience in any other art, it's actually a good thing also, because you can learn it right from the start. Brent said, I found that once I let go of the need for perfection, my artistic enjoyment and sense of freedom of expression really took off. Yeah, like, it's like, I don't know, like, if it turns out, like, even if I do a class, like, I have some idea, or maybe I prepared some draft painting, but then I'm live, things dry faster, slower, I'm talking, I'm in a different mindset maybe, and my result will be totally different. And even if I could paint by myself, I can paint the same thing, I can't copy my own painting. If I try to copy, I'm not allowing maybe a better version to emerge, because I'm just so focused on making it perfect, or again the same way as I did before. Olivia says, it's so much peace when you finally get it though. True, you can't control water because they are on their own. Well, you can control it, you just need to know how, and then you just need to let go, like detach yourself from the rest. But you do have control, like you just need to learn like how much water, how little water, what's the drying, the consistency of paint, the drying stages, because like all the paintings that look more complex and complicated, or like more detailed, or like more complex, I guess, you need to know how to control watercolor to be able to get that, like to get the sense of depth, realism, but also like looseness. And yeah, because otherwise it would be just blend together if you would know how to control watercolor at all. All right, so I'm going back to blue again. I might actually, I think because I have so much here, I might actually move a little bit of this green here, and then just introduce more water, and then come back with more blue. And I'll place it maybe here. Let me see if actually, I think it's already more bluish. Yeah, okay. Something like that. So now it's a more yeah, I think, I don't know, there's a little bit of green still inside, but it's more bluish now than green. Sarah says, I was originally introduced and started using watercolors because my therapist thought it would help with my OCD and neurodivergent perfectionism, because unlike acrylic, you can't control it. Yeah, like that's why I'm saying, like, it's a great teacher, because sometimes it forces you to unlearn different things, like to practice letting go, practice slowing down or speeding up depending on your process. I think this calls for some salt, because in between we didn't have, next to each other here we don't have any salt, so I think that would be good. So 1, 2, here you could use some blue, or like the mixture. Sharon says, that's the problem. I'm not sure when to stop and wait for it to dry. I'm not a pro, totally beginner. I still can create these complex drawings with them. Yeah, it's like, I always encourage everyone to really learn the foundations of watercolor. And we will actually talk, like next month I host paint to paper challenge. Maybe some of you already went through it, I don't know. I think some of you even went through my foundational course. And once you understand that, I firmly believe that it gives you such a good foundation that you can build on top, because this is all about like understanding how watercolor works. What's the techniques? When do you use certain techniques? And how do you achieve certain results? Because otherwise it will just random, and then you can't really recreate anything, because it's like, okay, this worked, but the other time it didn't work, and you don't know what was the difference. So having the foundation really helps. So understanding how watercolor works, and what's really the base for everything. It's like, yeah, trying to build a castle or a beautiful villa or house on like sand that really doesn't hold. Like, you need to have a foundation, and you can build a solid foundation, and you can build whatever you want on top. One, two, three, four. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 4, right? Okay. So I'll add one here, I think. Then we move to almost really blue. And I don't know if we have actually, I thought for some reason we managed to paint more in 1 hour. But maybe it's a great way for you to just continue. Like, maybe you're so hooked now on these patterns and these colors, and you can continue. Like, here you might just maybe use different color combination. Maybe you have like just use monochromatic, and then maybe in the other videos we will loosen up a little bit, because otherwise we'll be here for 3 hours, I think. I mean, we could totally do that. Like, we always do that in my painting parties and my membership. But I know if it's like a more complicated painting, it can be tiring, because then you have to focus so much. But this is, I think, actually not that mentally draining. I think it's really more actually relaxing, because you just fill in the gaps. And actually, you could use maybe a golden marker, because I think this will also look, or silver, maybe silver. That will be also nice. So I'm going back with more blue here. Maybe also a little bit of water, just to lighten it up, because remember, we already reduced the amount of water in our well because we applied to the paper. And then we come back and add pigment to it, so we have then more pigment and water, and this makes the painting or the paint darker. So you need to reapply a little bit of water just to lighten it up again. So this is already more bluish than greenish. Okay, and then this one here. So yeah, you can totally continue this pattern or like this idea. I mean, I didn't invent this neurographic type of painting, or yeah, but I think this is such a, sometimes you forget what exists. So maybe you heard about this, maybe you were not familiar with that. So if you're completely new, then this is a great way to relax and just paint and play with your colors, create textures with water and salt, or other mediums. Like, you can, like I said, use plastic foil and apply it here as well. Actually, do I have it? No, I think it's through the way. And get different results. Maybe you have already granulating paint and you can create something like that, and maybe you forgot about this existence of this idea, and you can play around with it. So this is my clean blue color. Let's see how this looks now. I think it's pretty close to what we already have. Maybe I can introduce a little bit of yellow again, because I feel like we have so much bluish green, or like maybe a slightly more transition from this yellowish green would be nice. Or we can also even use more muted versions of green. So it's not super vibrant, but something more toned down. So I use a little bit of some lemon yellow again with my blue, just so I have a little transition maybe in, yeah, I think maybe I already had it, but I feel like I want to use a little bit more of this yellowish green after all. And then I'll add some salt. Frances, do you have favorite artists that you enjoy watching on stream? I think I don't know if they do YouTube live streams, but I think they do like more paid. Like I like Sergey Kurbatov. He does live streams, but I think they're mostly paid. Sometimes sometimes they do some on YouTube, but not so often, and sometimes I miss them because they're in a time that I can't join like really live, but I like watching. I like to kind of like absorb, I guess, the energy, or just like be in the presence of that energy, and I feel like it's just helps me as well to kind of like get into the zone, or just like kind of like recharge a little bit my own creativity just by listening. And sometimes they remind me of something that I forgot, so but I don't think I'm there. I don't know if there are. I'm actually not super active on YouTube, like content wise. I'm not watching a lot of YouTube these days for some reason. But yeah, like sometimes you just need to be surrounded by other artists and just be in the presence of their energy, just to kind of just to soak up their joy and their energy of painting, I guess. Alfia says the salt is doing its magic. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Should have added some here as well. It feels like a little empty, but it's okay. So the color palette is similar to the Monstera leaves you drew in the past. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that. That's been a while. Yeah. It's just like a similar, like you can use pinks, like for example pinks, and then move it into a more purple, like a bluish purple, or like a reddish purple, and then same in the blue kind of color. You can also do the same with like orange and yellows, just like analogous color scheme. And here I add, what color should I add? Maybe it could be like a red dot here, but I don't know. I'm following the more monochromatic. So maybe some, maybe, let's see. it's hard to tell. Let's go with just blue. Let's not overthink. And there's also one little gap here. So this could be maybe some of the greens that I still have. And you can reuse that, like you can paint more if you have a lot of, what is this? A little bit, yeah, if you still have paint left, you can continue painting those patterns. And you can turn it into like a, you can, at the end, you can decide, do you want to keep the white space? So you can just let it dry and then remove the salt when it's completely dry, and then erase the pencil lines. And then you have just white space. Or maybe you are like, okay, I want to spice things up, and I add like a black marker and I just fill in the gaps, so just follow the outlines that you had earlier. Or you can use gold marker, silver marker, anything. You could even use I don't know, red marker would be very extreme, but maybe it will look cool as well. Sarah says, I still struggle with water ratio. It's difficult. Salt helps the paint to dry because it absorbs and paint and creates texture. Hair dry can be your bestie to rapidly dry your paint. Yeah, like sometimes you do want to use a hair dryer. Sometimes you can also just let it dry on its own. I wouldn't just use hair dryer right after you freshly applied the paint, because I feel like then it just dries much paler than it actually is. So I would always like let the paper dry, or the paint dry on its own a little bit, and then just finish up the drying process by using the hair dryer. Otherwise, yeah, it almost like pushes the pigments too much into the fiber, and then it just turns out looks a little more pale. Do you have a pile of unfinished or abandoned pieces? I don't think so, because I always encourage everyone to really finish it, because it's so easy to give up halfway, because it's like a messy stage. It's like, I don't know, it's working, it looks weird, maybe I should restart, because if we all would do that in the halfway, we wouldn't finish any painting at all, because it just, sometimes every painting that's more complex and has maybe multiple layers or elements to it, it will go through these stages where you start questioning everything, like yourself, your skills, the painting, and it's important just to finish it, because you can't really judge the painting too early because it's not finished. Like you can't like look at your mix of like flour, salt, and all this other stuff for making cake and then be like, okay, this cake is not great, because like you can't say that because you haven't baked it yet, because you need to bake it. And I mean, you can test if it's maybe too salty and things like that, but you can't judge it already when it's like halfway ready, like not even like close to being ready. So it's like with the painting as well. Sometimes you need to finish it and then you actually see, no, actually finally it comes together. Finally you can see the result, because because then you add these elements, and you add more contrast, and then you get all these other details here and there, and then all of a sudden, now I see it. And I know it's very uncomfortable in this messy stage where you're like questioning everything, but you just need to remember, so it's just an ugly, messy stage. It's still in the process, not finished stage. And then and then from there, once it's done, you can say, okay, I think this worked really well, and I really like how this turned out. This was not so great because I used maybe not the correct colors here, or I rushed here this part. And then you can think about your next move. So if you don't finish, you don't have this information, you just have frustration and nothing really to work with. And once you finish, you kind of like have this final result that you can really look at it once it's done, maybe after a day or something where you had a space in between, and then you can decide what do you keep, what do you improve, how do you can you make it a little better, or maybe it's already great, maybe it's everything fell into place. How do you balance creating art for yourself with creating art for YouTube? I sometimes struggle with the balance. yeah, like I mean, I'm not super active on YouTube. That's because like I have my watercolor membership, and we have lessons there and painting sessions there. But for me, I like to kind of like use it. I don't have as much time just to paint for myself. I know it's something I still need to work on, but I still like to I like the idea of testing ideas, seeing what I can create, and then share with others. So once I figured something out and really like had my 10 million attempts, and I learned my lessons and figured out how to achieve the best result, or the result that I'm happy with, I can then share with others. So it's like, I guess it helps to love learning and testing and figuring it out, and then sharing it with others, like just sharing the knowledge or sharing the lessons. But yeah, sometimes you need to schedule it in, like really schedule it in your calendar. This is my time to paint, this is my time to do XYZ just for myself. Don't think about posting it, not thinking about how to turn into a tutorial or anything like that. It's just for me, just to paint, to recharge my creativity. Because if you just create for teaching and things like that, or just sharing, it can also deplete yourself, and it feels like you ran out of anything, like you don't have anything to give anymore, and it's not a good place to be. All right, so yeah, I think let's maybe wrap it up here, because I know we talked about maybe approaching it a different way, but I think it's already, like, we don't want to overcomplicate things. So what you can do is, like I said, or maybe like I can show you one idea that I shared. So you can continue here as well, and then remove the tape and see what you've got. And here on the other side, what you can do, maybe you have already some leftover colors. You can actually do something similar, like maybe with salt. So maybe let's do another 5 minutes, and then I'll let you go. Alfia says, hey, yeah, it reminds me of how I took art in the midst of my science classes to have my me time even at school. Yeah, it's important to make time for ourselves. Like I shared in the last stream, I believe, that I picked up again my old hobbies, to reconnect, just to do something even completely different to painting, because sometimes you want to do something else, just to have a break from something else that you also enjoy, just to get into a different mindset, or just get a new perspective, or just kind of like recharge by having space a little bit. Right, so for this part here, what you can do, we can reuse what we already have. So I'm just applying water with my big white flat brush. So this is Da Vinci Casaneo this time. It's 5 centimeters. I don't know how much that is in inch. You can do a gradient sky there with the same colors. Yeah, like I was like, actually, because I was like, what's a green sky? Like it would be weird. Or maybe not, I don't know. I haven't seen personally a green sky. But what you can do is you could start maybe with if you have some blue mixture, start with blue on top. So I'm using wet and to wet here, so don't worry about too much or little water or paint. For now, just apply the water on the paint onto your wet paper. If you see like puddles, this is where you can remove excess moisture from your brush with your paper towel and soak up some of that, so you don't have like pools of water kind of like bouncing off all these edges. I will reapply, also lift the paper a little bit, and then we can introduce some green, or like this green blue mixture that's more saturated. Put it on the bottom, so maybe some more blue on top, and then more green on the bottom. So I might need to reapply, or because if it's too watery, you will notice it will dry much paler. So you need to make sure that you have enough pigment in it. You can also move the paint around, and the way I like to kind of like see if it's too little pigment or something like that, I usually can tell by, like, if I see the texture, like you can probably see like these white or these darker dots on this paper. And for me, I feel like when I see like the white in between those darker dots, it tells me it probably will dry lighter than I want it to be. So I will actually go back to my blue color straight from the pen and maybe add it, start from maybe from, yeah, here. Just adding a little bit more. And maybe also more into this green here. And for some reason my camera doesn't really pick up properly. I mean, this green, it's picked up pretty well, but somehow sometimes it just has a hard time differentiating the difference between blue and green, and like this mixture between. You can also lighten this up a little bit with a little bit of water, cleaning your brush and kind of like picking up some pigments. So if you feel like it's darkened too much, so I want to keep a little bit of lighter colors on top. So almost like a gradient from light to dark, and also from blue to a little bit green on the bottom. Remove excess moisture with your clean damp brush. So 5 centimeters is roughly 2 inches. Okay. Yeah, it's like can't usually remember like what's the how to calculate it without looking for this the number. Okay. And what you can do is you can also use salt here and have fun with it. Like, I usually don't like to apply salt right in a wet surface, because sometimes if it's too much water, the salt can really like melt and can hold in too much water for too long. But you can test it out and see what happens. So what I will do is I will just use again a little bit of water, salt. You can also use water, but can test out both. And I'll add it here on the bottom, like a little bit. You can also play around with how you apply it. So you could technically apply it in like a straight line or a zigzag line or like more wiggly line. So not just like randomly put it, but like see if you could get different results by playing how you place the salt. Because sometimes like for example, when you want to achieve like more controlled way for example like a tree or something like that, you can also apply it in like more clustered way in certain areas. So then the salt create these more bubbly, beautiful textures that looks like a tree. I actually have like, let me see if I can find it. Here I did this for a class in my membership. Like I created like, I tried to figure out like how can I maybe achieve like some more like a salty effect for trees. So this is kind of like the results I got. And yeah, also here some beautiful spring colors, so just like fun ways to use salt. So just need to learn like the right timing and where to place. And an aurora, you can also create an aurora as well. But the other fun part that you can test out is I apply again a little bit of water first. And I'll try to mix slightly lighter on the top. So I'll start with the bottom and then use the leftover pigments for the gradient. So I start with more pigment on the bottom and blend it upwards. So this is where I use up all the pigments pretty much. So it becomes more of this lighter version on top. Maybe maybe actually make it slightly darker. Okay, and I've now made it too dark again, but it's okay. You can lift off some again with some clean, more watery brush, and also slightly damp brush just to pick up some pigments. This time I will wait a little bit longer. For these trees, they're inside my watercolor membership teal. So these are like where I'm covered this more in detail and in depth. Because they're like inside the membership, really talk about the skills and techniques, and then put them into a painting project. And it's just like they are in-depth lessons there as well. And these are they are pre-recorded. And then we have our painting party at the end of each month, which is also very fun. Here I have some blooms, but it's okay. What you can also do is you can use your brush, remove excess moisture from your brush, and then maybe here you can remove some water, like paint, like a little bit of sun rays. But I want to make them slightly wider at the bottom because otherwise it looks like spikes. But again, you can play around with it like more intentionally, because right now I'm just like demonstrating some ideas, and then you can again divide the paper in smaller sections and then focus on one thing at a time where you want to practice, like maybe color mixing, maybe you want to practice blending, maybe some certain technique. And here what I'll do is I will use water this time. So I use actually water in my brush, tilt my paper back, and start adding it here at the bottom like that. So let the water kind of push away the pigments. And you can also kind of like move it a little bit, but not really. So just like let it be. I can see there's a hard edge forming, so what I'll do is I clean my brush, remove excess moisture, and you can really gently, really gently, just barely touching the paper, slightly pick it up just a little bit. Like, so usually it's better to just not touch it. Sometimes you make it worse by trying to fiddle with it too much and making it perfect, and then all of a sudden you get patchy results, and then all of a sudden you have a line that you didn't want and stuff like that. So you just be very mindful. What time is it for you? It's 12 a.m. Oh my gosh, it's almost 9 here p.m. So I will let it be for now and just let it dry. Like, we want to really let it dry on its own, because then you'll get the best results. Yeah, but also at the same time, if you already feel like I really like the effect that I got here, and you know the paint is still like shiny and it's still drying, use a hair dryer, blow dry it, because then you kind of like set the effect in, not in stone, but it doesn't move anymore, because the salt and the paint still works as long as there's still moisture, right? So if you're like, okay, I really like how it looks now, just blow dry it gently with a like warmish heat, or like not super hot, like just warm, I guess, slightly cooler maybe, and like set it so it doesn't continue spreading out or getting like developing itself. Or you can add some salt here. You can also do that. Or if you notice maybe you lost some of the salt grains because they melted, you can reapply a little bit. And just let it be, like really play around and have fun with it. Reuse your colors. You can do the same salt technique that we did here on this, but more like maybe shape it in a way that you want to shape it, and test out different colors. Yeah, like have fun with it, and yeah, just see what you can create. Like I think this is the part where you can't really do anything wrong here. You can just remove first to sum up the whole stream, or like the essence of what we talked about. Approach every painting as just an opportunity to play, to have fun, to learn something new, to see what happens, and detach yourself from any expectations to make it a masterpiece. Maybe your intention is to really just to have fun and learn. So detach yourself from the outcome, because this is not even the goal. Like you're not doing this for the outcome. You're doing it for the fun, for learning, to play. And then once you start, if you feel like, oh my gosh, this is too large of a piece of paper, I'm not sure like what the idea really, I have some idea but not sure if it's how it will turn out, and I don't want to the space feels too much, just divide it into smaller sections, either in half, so you have maybe like that, this space, or this divide it even in quarters, so you have like a more landscape or portrait format, depending on what you want to paint. And then you can start with some wiggly lines. You can also just tape it so it's more like a rectangle shape, or you can just mix your colors, decide on what colors, keep it simple, start maybe with one color, and change it with more watery, more pigmented, the different ratios of water and paint. And this is also a great way to practice that. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I need to paint that particular painting. It's more about just the color and water, and you still create something beautiful and something more abstract. And then you can decide on the colors, like maybe just keep it more analogous, where you just pick like more bluish, green, like something close to each other on the color wheel, from like green, blue, or maybe some purple, pink, blue, purple, and then maybe you just test it out. Maybe go look for more inspiration. You can look for a color wheel and look at what's the opposite color from green, for example. Oh great, like something with red, like for example, and then you can introduce red, like, and see maybe you have a lot of green, but there's a little bit of red here and there, just to make a little bit of have some accents here and there. Where can we connect with you apart from here? You can if you download, for example, sign up for the for the watercolor supplies guide, for example, you can sign up to receive my emails when we have a new class or an event. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'll link the social, I think, but it's just like I'm not super active on social, because like there's so many things to keep an eye on, so email is definitely much better, because I feel like this is where I can reach everyone, or more, or like at least a little more, so you can get information on future classes, things like that. Also, you can see that my tape, I might have didn't apply the tape well enough, because I had lots of water, like you can see here. There's a lot of water underneath the tape, and you can see it's was a little sneaky here and flew through the tape, but it's okay. And this is where you get these blooms, because then you have this water that pushes into your drying paper, but so it is. And here I remove it from the top, because this is already dry, so I can remove that. And I will reapply the tape later. Just wanted to show you what we have so far. And like I said, you can just continue, you don't have to remove any tape. I would wait for it to dry. Oh gosh, this is like a lot of water here. You can also reuse some of the tape, like you can tape it on the side and reuse it later. Or don't use a tape at all if you feel like, oh, it's small enough, I can handle this to cover it with paint. And yeah, like I'm really like happy how it turned out. Like you can see how different watercolor can be. Like you can really be precise about like paint applying, maybe like just flat washes like that. You can have fun with creating texture. So even like once it's dry, you can just scrub off the pigments, or like not pigments, the salt, and see what you got. I really like how this blue and the salt looks. It looks like a gemstone or some beautiful rich blue type of precious stone. And then you can see how loose you can paint. Like you can really decide on different effects. Like here I didn't really do much. Like I just applied gradient, wet and wet, and then just added the same salt, like, and just a little bit more with control, and create like some magical, completely different style of painting. So you can really choose your own style. And I think that's also, like, I think someone was mentioning in the last stream that you want to like when it comes to finding your own style, I think you already have your own style. Like you have your, because style is usually like your preferences combined. Like you, certain things speak to you. Like you have music, like you have certain music that speaks to you, so you have your preferences in that. And also in art, like you are drawn to certain elements. So maybe not exactly maybe this color, but like the composition, or maybe the texture, maybe the way the paint looks, and maybe it's more loose. So you have these preferences. And I think the best way to really develop it is when you develop your own, like vocabulary of how to use watercolors, like different, like how, like I said in the beginning, or somewhere in the middle, once you have the foundation of how watercolor works. So this is your base. So the foundation of watercolor, the techniques, timing, everything that comes or plays a huge role in the process of painting with watercolors. And then from there you can experiment with different techniques, learn different like even with the salted trees that I showed you, like you can, because you already know how watercolor works, you know, okay, this is what I need to pay attention to, and then you can play around with different things, and slowly but surely you can start seeing, okay, I'm really drawn to these paintings that I created here. I'm really drawn to these colors, these patterns, to this color combination or something like that. So you can really be you have, I guess, more, like with everything, if you have more words in your vocabulary or in your data bank in your head, the more you can use, like the more complex the sentences can be, the more complex your poems can be, because you have lots of different words to use like you can use to create this beautiful literature, lyrics, text, poems. And the same goes with watercolor and painting in general. Like your style is you develop by being aware of your preferences, maybe even combining, like really paying attention to a theme pattern of all the preferences you have when it comes to painting and art, and then learning how you can actively use it. Like it's like learning a language. Like you can passively learn all the words, but unless you actually actively use them, it's a completely different story. So learning and then actually using and testing and figuring out how, like, do I like this approach or that approach? Did this work, or should I maybe do this? But you have the freedom to express yourself fully, because you have not only the foundation but also the tools, the skills to unlock your style, like, or getting even closer, like maybe even just not just unlocking, but even like coming back to it, or just fine-tuning it, or really actually articulating it in a way that already is inside you. So like maybe you want your paint more loose, but somehow it always comes out, you paint more illustrative, like very precise, but you really want to be more loose. But how can you unlock that? Maybe that's already your style, but you just don't know how to unlock that. So yeah, I'm super excited. Like we will paint more throughout the next few weeks. So we still have I don't know exactly how many weeks I was planned ahead. Like this is our second week, so we will talk about next time. What we will talk about now that we set up our space for success, we talked about our mindset, we broke into our supplies a little bit by playing, by reconnecting with painting and the colors, and just into the process, or reconnected with the process. now we can think about, okay, let's paint something with intention also. Like, let's think about maybe how do we, because sometimes when we don't have a plan, if we don't know where we're aiming, it feels like so aimless, and we don't feel confident where we're going, how it will turn out. So sometimes having a slight plan, a rough idea, helps us to know, okay, this is where we're going. It doesn't mean we have to strictly go that route. You can still like go to the left and right and check out what's here, but we know where we're going. And next time, or next week, on the next live session, we are going to talk about how can we plan our painting. So we're not going to paint per se, so we're not painting immediately the painting. We're going to plan ahead and figure out like what sparks joy the most for us, which combination, which composition, where do we place things, so we can really think about a little bit more in plan ahead, and also test ideas before committing to a huge sheet of paper, all the colors. We can now focus on just the idea and where do we want to go, and then the other times we will test out different techniques, different approaches, and then paint the project in the end. So I'm super excited. And next time, I think it will be, I need to check the calendar, but make sure to download the free supplies guide. And also, I think in the email I also shared like a calendar where you can synchronize with your own calendar and know exactly when the live streams are. But I believe it's like, let's check calendar. I think it's next Saturday. I need to double check. So I switch around between Thursday and Saturday, I think. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this painting session with me. Let me show, this is what we worked on. So if it's dry, like you said, you can remove the pencil lines and then it will be more visible, or you can decide maybe you want to keep it white, maybe you want to, oops, I touched this, drawing paper, okay. Or you can use a white marker, maybe you want to just, or silver, black, golden, something, or just leave it the way it is. I think it's just like the pencil line, if it just stays the pencil, I think it's a little distracting. So I'd rather either remove the pencil line or cover the white space in the end. Because otherwise it's kind of like, it's kind of hard to tell what's the purpose of the pencil there if you don't remove it. So yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out with me and painting. It was super fun, and I hope you learned a few tricks, maybe some ideas, sparked some new idea. Maybe you can just like continue, like maybe you're still painting and just listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I need just my quiet time. But I hope it helped you to start, remove some resistance, maybe some doubt, and simplify the process so you can just paint and see whatever happens on paper. Maybe it will spark an idea for a painting, for an element in a painting, and you can kind of like put into your toolbox, into your inventory of things that you can then use in your next painting. And yeah, so I'll see you hopefully next week for another live session. Make sure to download the guide. So I have the free guide to the supplies guide, and also mixing guide, so we can also learn about what colors go together and how to make sure you avoid like muddy colors if you don't want to get any like more muted versions, or maybe you want, like you don't know how to make them. You also learn that as well. And I will see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week, day, morning, and make sure to share, like if you follow me on social, if you follow me inside the Facebook group that we have, make sure to share what you created today. I'm super excited to see what you painted, what you created, how you use this technique, how you use these ideas, and I'll be looking out for it. Thanks everyone again. Have a wonderful day.